Stay tuned to Cardinal Television. Commotion's coming up next. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the season finale of Commotion, a pop culture debate show exclusively here on CTV. This was an episode so big that the former host, me, Rob Sweet, had to return. And I'm here with a group of panelists for which I will shoot out relevant issues of discussion. Each member of the panel will provide their opinions, objections, and arguments in regards to the topic. At the end of the show, the panelist who provides the best arguments of the day will be allowed 30 seconds to rant about whatever they want. And now to introduce today's panelists. They are James Bailey, who just so happens to be the star of the upcoming movie CTV Chronicles. Ooh, I can't wait to see that one. And next we have Caitlin Murphy, who owns 2 pet birds. 2.
Yep.
Any of them talk?
Nope, they're tiny birds, so they just kind of
sit in a cage.
Yeah.
And then lastly, we have Nick Ferguson, who is, he's graduated in May. That's kind of cool.
It is pretty cool. I mean, I'm pretty awesome.
So are other students, but hey.
Hey, but it's me.
It's you.
Those aren't on Commotion.
All right, now let's see if these panelists have what it takes to handle our hot topics on this week's Commotion. First up, the U.S. women's national soccer team has been in the news for their discrimination lawsuit against U.S. Soccer. The suit is looking to address the pay discrepancy the women face as compared to the less successful men's team. While the lawsuit was filed last month, team captain Becky Sauerbrunn has commented this past week on the case, saying that the team would be willing to go as far as boycotting the 2016 Olympics in Rio if this issue is left unresolved. The U.S. women won the gold medal in 2012, and coming off their World Cup win this past summer, they are favorites to win the gold again this year. Should the women go so far as to boycott the Olympics? Well, Nick, I'd like to start with you.
Okay, well, I actually think that they should probably boycott the Olympics if they do not get fair pay. It's unfair for the women who have been much more successful than the men in history. They've won multiple World Cups. The men, they lose every 4 years in like the first or second round. They rarely make out of group play. And it's time for equal pay across the board. And I think this is actually a really helpful thing to start with because sports generally is like one of the big things in our culture. And if you can get things to change through sports, it usually affects other parts also.
Yeah, oh yeah. Sports has been a platform in society, globally, internationally, nationally, to get change occurred. Caitlin.
I definitely agree with this just because of the fact some people might argue that this is a little extreme since the Olympics is such a world-renowned thing, but with things like this, I feel like it takes the extreme to get their points across. And if boycotting the Olympics is what's get people to say, okay, they do deserve equal pay, because as Nick said, they've been so much more successful as the men's team, but the men make millions more than them. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So I would definitely support them if they did boycott the Olympics.
Oh, all right, right on. James, do you agree with your panelists here? I mean, they raise good points.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. Because you can look at it both ways and say that if they do go and win again, it's kind of further cements their argument. And the other thing is that you would feel, there are 5 women on the lawsuit, and they say they have the support of all the teammates. It is going to be bad, for like some of the players that may not get another opportunity to go play on that high of a level again if they do boycott. So obviously, I understand that it's an issue, and it should be obviously fixed. But especially as like a pure sports fan, it's unfortunate not to see like the best team would back out. It'd be like if the Golden State Warriors all of a sudden backed out of the NBA playoffs right now. It doesn't make it the same.
You're not opposed to the pay issue, but you just don't want to see deserving athletes miss out.
Yeah, no, I think that the pay issue should be resolved. I think that it is definitely unfair that they make so much less than the men's team, and that they've been so much more successful. I mean, the men's team didn't even qualify for the Olympics. But just as a sports fan, I think I don't like boycotting because I feel like it's something that you're going to regret at the end. Just they're professional athletes because they're competitors, and I understand, and I think that boycotting would be their best chance to get this done immediately. But I just don't want it to come down to.
It'll take a whole another 4 years for those athletes if they are old enough to.
Right.
If they're not too old to be able to compete.
My initial concern with that is I'm worried if they did end up going to the Olympics, then people who are opposed to the pay gap or who are fine with the pay gap would say, well, see, they're willing to play and for the same price. So if they don't boycott, then people are like, well, we don't need to raise it. They're going to play anyway. Their words mean nothing.
Yeah, but you want to believe in like the human aspect a little bit there too, where this like if they keep on winning, you think that they'd have a little bit of human like decency and say that they deserve a little bit more than what they're getting.
But that hasn't worked up until now. I mean, this has been like the superstar of the American sports world for forever, and they haven't gotten anything for it. I didn't even know they were paid less until it was brought to light by them.
Yeah, and I agree with both of their points too, but I mean, I would like to see the women play, obviously, because as an American, you like to see that your team is like represented, but also at the same token, it's unfair for the women because like when they lose games, like they sometimes don't get paid at all. The men still get paid even if they lose like an international friendly and all that stuff. And the women just get like so shortchanged that I would like them to be able to continue playing and see if they can resolve it in another way. But if there's no other way, then obviously boycotting is an option, and it's a good option. Good
point, guys. I think in the climate we are in today with sports, there is a feminine revolution going on. You see it in MMA, in my sport of pro wrestling. It's very prevalent right now. So, hey, let's get it all across the board. Women's rights, right? All right, moving on. North Carolina's Governor Pat McCrory has altered a portion of the controversial bill which allowed for the discrimination of LGBT individuals as an aspect of religious liberty. Despite immediately signing the bill into law, McCrory is now urging the lawmakers to allow state employees to bring sexuality discrimination suits to state courts. This comes after the many measures taken in protest of the law, such as the New York State banning business travel to North Carolina and Bruce Springsteen canceling his concerts in the state due to the bill. Even though the bill itself has not been completely removed, does this instance prove that boycotting works? Caitlin?
I definitely think that it proves at the very least that protesting works because unfortunately I think these lawmakers have made it obvious that you can't hit them in the hearts because they don't care. They're more than happy to ruin these people's lives just because of their sexuality or gender. So I think hitting them in the wallet is the next best thing. I mean, look at Georgia. After they tried to pass their bills, AMC's The Walking Dead and Disney said, if you keep this up, we're not staying here, and they immediately vetoed the bill. So I think this is the best thing that they can do, and I'm really happy that celebrities such as Bruce Springsteen are using their status to speak up about these things.
Yeah, using their clout. James, do you agree? I mean, we're still on the boycotting thing.
Yeah, I mean it's I'm kind of overall anti-boycott because I don't know. I know it works, but it sucks. I don't know what better. I mean, it's just because there's a lot of people in North Carolina that aren't probably pro this bill that want to see Bruce Springsteen. Now they're not going to get to see it, so that.
Right.
The NBA is going to pull the All-Star game out of it. There's just a lot of things.
Another situation where people are missing out on.
Yeah, there's a lot of people missing out on stuff that isn't their fault, So it's tough.
Could it be said that it's just a form of passive aggressive?
No, I understand
better than violent behavior.
And I understand what they're doing, but I just and I guess the question is, does boycotting work? Yes, obviously it's working. I think that I don't think this law is going to stay around all that much longer. They're just going to lose too much in business, too much overall, and I think this is just a good enough example that I don't think any other state's going to pass something like this. But for the residents of North Carolina, it's just an awful all-around situation, I think.
Nicholas?
I would definitely say that boycotting does work because we've seen it work in the past. We've seen it now. But I feel like the main reason why it works is because of the economic impact. If it just was boycotting something simple where there wasn't really a big economic impact in it, but because Bruce Springsteen, who's a huge name, and the NBA are refusing to come to North Carolina, that's why we're seeing it work. I don't know if boycotting in general works if it's just hey, look, we're all going to not do this. It's okay, well, if it doesn't provide that much of an economic impact, then it's okay, we can do without. But because this is such a huge issue, and even Governor Cuomo, who not everyone is a big fan of, has decided to ban all unnecessary travel to North Carolina, it's like, okay, that's actually like putting extra pressure on North Carolina.
My question with that is, how do you enforce that?
He's not doing unnecessary travel for the public. He's doing state business travel. So state workers are boycotting traveling to North Carolina. We as people can still go to North Carolina, but if you work for New York State, you're no longer doing business with North Carolina.
And I feel like it's more symbolic in reality than anything else. It's just like, hey, we're proving a point here. Like, Governor Cuomo's like, we don't support what you're doing in North Carolina, so this is our way of showing it. It's not like they're like, oh, you cannot go to North Carolina building like a wall around it, like Donald Trump would.
Our country has made history of doing that internationally with trade embargoes and things like that. But does it kind of go against our own people if we're doing it to our, if there's between us? It's a new civil war kind of thing?
I mean, to be a little bit of devil's advocate, I mean, North Carolina does have the right to pass this sort of law. In order for it to pass the law, it doesn't just go through the entire state government approve this, at least enough to get it passed. So, it's not like they're doing anything legally illegal. Morally, definitely not really right. But I just feel bad for the people of North Carolina that this whole thing has just put a lot of huge damper on everybody.
That case, and it might work as well, because if the boycotting itself doesn't work, so many people are going to be pissed off because they missed the Bruce Springsteen concerts and the basketball games.
Just imagine if Andrew Brown lived in North Carolina. He's seen Bruce
Springsteen
every single time he's within 400 miles.
He loves Bruce.
I, for one, would never want to miss the boss in concert. He puts on a great show, over 3 hours long. So to boycott or not to boycott, you guys can decide during the commercial break, but don't go away because there is more commotion to be had after that break. See you after the break.
Oh, hey, Mark.
Hey, Mark.
Hey.
Where have you been?
I lost my cat.
Oh, that's not right.
Yeah, so I made this cat magnet to try and get him back.
Cool. Does it work?
Kinda.
Nice.
Yeah, but that's not my cat. Gotta keep working on it. See ya.
See ya.
Anything's possible. Keep thinking. Get started on your own inventions or just play some games at inventnow.org.
Hey, you didn't go too far away, and you're back with us on Commotion. On to our next topic. A UNICEF report has found out that Boko Haram, the African terrorist group, has been forcing children to carry out 1 in 5 of their suicide attacks in countries such as Cameroon, Nigeria, and Chad. This is the same group that a few years ago kidnapped over 200 Nigerian schoolgirls, most of which have yet to be found. The group has carried out many other acts, such as additional school kidnappings, attacks, and bombings, all of which are in Africa. Despite these heinous attacks, Boko Haram seems to get very little media coverage, especially as is compared to ISIS. Why do you think that is? James, I want to start with you on this one.
I think that it's a pretty simple answer, to be honest. We don't see them as a threat to us. ISIS has come out and said that they hate America and they're going to attack America. They plan to attack America, and they've attacked our allies in France and Belgium. But we just don't have the same relationship with Cameroon, Nigeria, and Chad. So I mean, it's just not as big of an issue for us because it doesn't pertain to us as much. So the media just kind of, it's just not as big of a U.S. interest.
I agree with that in part also but not entirely. Because yes, though they are not maybe the biggest threat, Boko Haram has pledged their allegiance to ISIS also, so they are combined, they work together essentially, or at least in theory they do. But also, like James said, ISIS is just a much bigger threat at the moment. They've been attacking Europe and threats to the U.S. and here and there is just constant ISIS threat, people recruiting and all that stuff. And right now, though Boko Haram is bad and they should get more media coverage, at the moment in the U.S., I agree that ISIS probably should get more coverage and is more important at the moment.
I feel like that's kind of, I don't necessarily agree with the fact that ISIS threatens our ideals more than Boko Haram, because Boko Haram is actually Arabic for Western education is forbidden. So they are actually attacking our ideals in the sense that the reason they're killing these schoolgirls and kidnapping them is because we, the West, taught, in a way, Africa to educate their girls and all that. So they're attacking our ideals, which I think is just as dangerous. And in a way, we did cover the the schoolgirl kidnapping when 200 schoolgirls were kidnapped with that hashtag #BringBackOurGirls. Mm-hmm. But it seemed kind of started to die away really quickly, even before we did anything, even though we pledged so much help. And I think it's just that continuous thing where Western civilization has a tendency of ignoring Africa for whatever reasons, for lack of oil, because we like to ignore genocides for some reason. But I think it goes into that rhetoric more.
But at the same time, is this something we want to get involved with?
We don't have to necessarily get involved, but I feel like the fact that our media is choosing to act like they don't exist is just as bad as if we pretty much said, oh, well, we only care about ISIS because they only care about attacking us, and I don't necessarily think that's right.
And I agree with that too, but I feel like there should be some more like public outcry by like the American people in general too. Like, I don't know if you remember like that 2012 thing where it's like, Coney 2012 and like stop this guy. And like there was like a big campaign where like the American people were getting behind that, so it obviously got more coverage. We need like, I guess we can't just like depend on the media to cover it. If we want certain things to be covered, we have to like make a point to like get that out there.
You can't blame the media because obviously, just on a world scale, France and Belgium are just more important countries than the smaller African nations. So you can't really blame the media for giving ISIS more airtime to cover attacks like that than attacks like this. I mean, it just seems like so many countries in Africa, I think that the reason it gets ignored so much is that they seem to be in civil war so often that it's less shocking to see itself there.
That's our fault. That's Western civilization's fault. We're the one who cut up that continent like it was a puzzle, and we completely ruined all of their tribes, all of their treaties. So all of this stuff is a direct, regardless of ISIS, Boko Haram.
But we're not involved there anymore.
Because we choose not to be.
I agree,
actually,
but I don't.
I think the U.S. is already overstretched as it is, though.
I agree too, but I wouldn't want to put it like only on the U.S. too, because though you are right, we did partition Africa.
No, not the U.S. The Western civilization, like England, France, all of them.
Yeah,
I agree,
but then,
that's a different story than just the U.S. Because the U.S. always comes down to the U.S. all the time, and it can't always come down to the U.S. So
I'm not saying it comes down to the U.S. I'm talking international media.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and I mean, if it's that case, then yeah, I think that Europe needs to get more involved, and not only with this, but with ISIS and the other terror threats as well. I think that overall, as a world, we rely
much
on
more like
us
world
too much.
coalition to
the U.S. and
take care of some of our problems and not just focus on like us. Like, because I agree that I'm sure many countries do feel like the same way that we all feel that Boko Haram should get more coverage and there should be more done.
And we're very ethnocentric because ISIS killed 200 people in Pakistan. Where was that news story? Or the bombings in Turkey? We only care when it happens to Western civilization.
And I think if you want change to happen, you got to spread the word. And to spread the word in this day and age, you need the media, whether it's social or whether it's broadcast, some way, shape, or form. But we got to move on from that one. You guys got a little bit heated. I'm feeling the temperature rise.
Feeling the burn?
This week marks the official retirement of Kobe Bryant, my personal favorite basketball player. Bryant put in 20 years with the Los Angeles Lakers and helped the team earn 5 championships. However, Bryant's farewell tour has been panned by many as hurting his young Lakers team. Bryant took minutes away from young players looking to gain experience and was a huge distraction for a Laker team that will end up with the worst record in franchise history. 2 years back, a similar farewell tour for Derek Jeter hindered the Yankees as they missed the playoffs in the captain's final seasons. Meanwhile, more humble athletes such as Peyton Manning and Tim Duncan have been successful in their final years by keeping retirement talks quiet. Are long retirement tours detrimental to sports? And do these athletes deserve this much praise and celebration? Who wants to start on this one? Because this is something I'm sure we're all passionate about.
I mean, it's...
you can go.
Well, I mean, I think that if you asked this question yesterday at this time, it would garner a little bit different response than today, Thursday, the day after what happened last night. I think if we're talking about the retirement tour as a whole, I think Kobe answered it best when people asked him after his 60-point performance last night, was this the best way to go out? And he said, absolutely not. Going out with the championship ring would be. I mean, that's really the whole thing. I mean, last night was a great final culmination for Kobe. He scored 60 points in his final game, all the celebrities, all the fanfare. But at the end of the day, it was the Lakers' 17th win in the season. So I think that definitely hindered the team having this kind of like cloud over them all season that, it's all about Kobe, and that kind of hurt the team a little bit. And I think there's the same thing, like mentioned Jeter. I mean, I think the Yankees did the same thing where they kept Jeter up high in the lineup when he clearly didn't deserve to be there, and it hurt the team, and they ended up missing the playoffs that year. So, overall, I think that you'd rather go out like Peyton Manning, who didn't put up the best stats in his final game, but left with a Super Bowl ring.
I would agree with that these long retirement tours, I don't see them as necessary. Like, you can have news coverage about a player retiring without having these huge week-long tours. Like Peyton Manning, there was plenty broadcast coverage about when he retired, but it wasn't detrimental to his team because he didn't take the entire team and turn it into his personal pedestal while he was retiring. As for the second question, it's kind of iffy because personally, as a society, I believe, we give athletes and celebrities as a whole way too much praise and celebration. It's the emotion of the fact, like he said yesterday, everyone was extremely emotional. If you loved Kobe Bryant, it was a big deal to see him retire. And as a Yankees fan, it was a big deal for me to see Jeter retire. But I don't think we need to have these huge retirement tours where it's constantly, okay, well, the Lakers are playing, but who cares about the rest of the Lakers? Let's go to Kobe. I think that is detrimental and that does need to change.
What do you think?
I mean, originally when I was going to start, I had a different mindset. I was going to be like, oh, this tour is probably like a good thing because the Lakers aren't going to be very good or weren't going to be very good this year anyway. But listening to my fellow panelists, I do probably agree that the retirement tours are just like a little long and drawn out. There's no reason to have them like that long. Yes, Kobe Bryant and Derek Jeter were great players, but you don't need to praise them like they are the greatest thing on the earth. I mean, yes, they are great, but they're still basketball players and baseball players. And I don't know if we need to put them on such a pedestal.
Well, you got to look at it from the organizational standpoint as well, as how much money these guys mean as franchise players themselves.
But I mean, Kobe was making. I mean, another part that in which he was hurting the Lakers is that he was making $25 million this year, and he was clearly not worth $25 million. So I mean, that's just it's one of those things where it's great to honor a great player. But it went too far. I mean, he announced his retirement before Christmas, and all of a sudden it was like a year-long thing where he's same thing with Jeter. Receiving gifts from every team. I mean, he's a guy making $25 million a year, and everyone just giving him more free stuff. And he did a lot to earn it. I mean, he's probably going to go down as one of the top 10 NBA players of all time at the moment. But it's tough to see why he deserved all this, and how much the Lakers kind of gave up to do this all for him.
And on top of that, I mean, ticket prices, like, I don't know if you guys looked up the ticket prices for Jeter's retirement tour, but there were ones that were selling for over $1,000. And if you can get a diehard fan to dish out $1,000, and the organization's going to make a lot of money.
The Lakers just last night at the game sold $1.2 million in Kobe merchandise. So, I mean, it was a big moneymaker for the team, but do you want to take, it comes down to, do you want to take that money or do you want to win? And I think, for a Lakers organization, that's a pretty proud organization.
They knew they weren't going to win, though,
Yeah,
so
but you
still got to celebrate the career.
You can do better than, worst season in franchise history, though. I mean, I don't think they need to stoop down that low. They had enough young talent on that team that they could.
I agree with both of them. It just needed, the retirement tour's okay, but it needed to be abbreviated. It did not need to be so long.
If you adjust last night, it would have been perfect. Just last night with that performance and the tribute video and all the celebrities there. I think it got tarnished a little bit with the whole tour, but I mean, last night was a fantastic night in sports.
Michael Jordan even came back on a fantastic ending to a career with the Chicago Bulls, with the Wizards, and tainted the way he went out with his fadeaway three-point jumper to win the game. I don't know. So it's all perspective. I would say our panelists are getting pretty, and I promised my buddy John in the back that I'd say this, commotional. But stick around for our last two topics after the break.
What's that? I don't know. Something I kind of made. Ooh, what's it do?
What do I do? Well, thanks for asking. I ring my bell and I like to dance. What do I do? Well, thanks for asking.
Ow!
Yeah, it still needs a little work.
Anything's possible. Keep thinking. Get started on your own inventions or just play some games at inventnow.org.
And welcome back to Commotion. And checking my tally here, it's a pretty close debate. Let's see who can close it out with these last two topics. Recently, it has been reported that the NBA plans on selling ad space on players' jerseys. Owners are expected to vote on this proposal this week, and if passed, ads could be featured on players' jerseys as early as the 2017-2018 season. Is this a smart move by the NBA, or is this going to tarnish the reputation of the league and show that they value money over everything? Who wants to talk about money here? Who knows something about money? Caitlin, you look like you got green in your eyes.
I feel like it will definitely tarnish the reputation of the league because they're turning it into who cares about the players. It matters more that hypothetically speaking, LeBron James is wearing a Chick-fil-A logo because that means we get $1 million from Chick-fil-A or something. And I wish I could say that I think they won't do it, but I think past sports organizations have proved that they will. I mean, look at college football and all their bowls. I mean, I can't even recognize half of the corporations that sell ad space for those bowls. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, right.
So I wish they wouldn't, and I think it will be a negative move, but I feel like they're going to.
I don't know if it's necessarily going to tarnish their reputation because people are still going to watch the NBA, in my opinion. But personally, I'm not going to like it. I watch like European soccer sometimes, and it's just annoying. Like, what team does this person play for? Because all I see is like Qatar Airlines and this and like all these other brands. It's like, that's not necessary. Just keep it like the Lakers jersey. I wouldn't want to see like, hey, a Kobe Bryant jersey, and then boom, there's a giant Toyota like right there on the front.
It'll turn it into NASCAR essentially.
Yeah, it's too much.
Point.
But it depends on what they do. I don't know if you guys noticed, but in the All-Star game this year, there were sponsors on the jersey, and they weren't necessarily noticeable. I think it comes down to how you sponsor the jersey. Is it going to be like the WNBA, where instead of the team name, there's a corporate logo, or is it going to be like a little patch up on the jersey where like a number would be, or where the NBA logo would be? If it's something like that, I think that's a little more doable, and I think that might be a smart move by the NBA to bring a little more revenue, because obviously making more money is going to be better. But obviously, if it's going to be something big that's going to distract from the entire uniform, that's different. But so I think it definitely, if it gets passed, it's going to come down to how it gets passed. How big of a scale it's going to be on.
My question is, where do the players themselves come into this? Like, if it is they're selling ad space on players' jerseys, do players get a portion of the money, or is this just
the same
completely
thing
the
with
organization?
the same thing with all the like some teams are just sponsored by Nike, so they just wear all Nike gear and stuff like that.
But I'm taking it that they're intending to spell, like I said, kind of like NASCAR, you're going to have different organizations take out different ad space and things like that.
And I don't think it's going to directly come to the players. I think it's going to come in. I think where it's going to come in is that the organization will get more money. I bet you the salary cap will probably raise higher. So I mean, if that's the case, the players are definitely going to be all down for it.
Let me throw this out there. Two sports, individual sports, but two sports where the athletes don't wear as much gear. MMA, boxing, for years have been using their trunks as advertising space, and it's a big profitability, and yet it doesn't distract from the viewers watching it.
I agree, but because they've been doing it for like so long, and it seems like they kind of like started out like that, people are used to it. The NBA, for example, has been around for I don't know how many years, probably like 80 years or something. And it's been around for so long, and now all of a sudden just to start throwing things on it, it's weird. I know the NHL and the AHL specifically started putting little like ads on there too, and it looks a little off, and it's just kind of weird to look at. And I also feel like it is a slippery slope. Like, yes, I agree with James.
When you're watching an NBA game and you see a Cavs number 23 jersey, you still know that's LeBron James. If it says Cavs in the front, or if it says something else, I'm not 100% for it, especially for the big logo that's going to take away from the team, where you can't identify the team but only the corporation. But if you're adding a small patch onto a uniform, I mean, I'm all for making more money for.
I would be good with the small patch too, but I just think it's a slippery slope. You start out with the small patch, and then all of a sudden, hey, let's go with the bigger patch, and let's do this, and all of a sudden, there's like a jersey with 35 advertisements on it.
Let's not fool ourselves. These companies, all they do care, the organizations, all they do care about is making money.
Absolutely.
Going back to the celebrating the retirements and this and that, it's all about making more money. I mean, they don't care about the integrity of the sport, really. In the end, they care about more money.
It's not going to make people stop watching. I mean, all the crap that the NFL has come under in the past 3, 4, 5 years, no one's stopped watching. In fact, their fan base has gotten bigger.
That's exactly why they do it, is because no one cares. They know they can get away with it.
They would need people to specifically like stop and make a point of it. Like, no, we're not going to accept this. But sports is too big, so no one's going to do that.
It's clear that everybody on the panel cares. And, so before we get too reacted over it, let's keep going and go on to our final topic. Okay, OPEC announced this week that Saudi Arabia plans on freezing oil outputs in order to support higher oil prices. As a result of this action, oil prices and in turn gas prices will be going up again in the near future. What are your thoughts on this action taken by OPEC and Saudi Arabia, and do you see where they are coming from?
I don't understand necessarily where I see Saudi Arabia coming from, because I don't feel like they can use the excuse that they need more money because they're losing money from this, because I read on CNN Saudi Arabia just put away $2 trillion to save for when oil goes away and alternative energy comes through. So if they're so obsessed with oil, like, oh, we need to freeze oil outputs to make more money, why don't they take the reserves from that $2 trillion they just threw away?
Right. Oh, yeah.
I mean, I see it as like Saudi Arabia, who's been like pumping oil like crazy this past year. They finally agreed with OPEC to probably like stop pumping it, just so these other oil companies are like, holy crap, we're going out of business and this sucks for us. And they want like economies to start doing better also, because it's always better when there's more money in the market. So though I hate the idea of oil prices and in turn gas prices going up, I kind of see where they're coming from in that this is like, well, you do need, I guess, the economy to run better, but it sucks, and I don't like it at all.
I mean, and I'll just say that it's like the Middle East, and how like predictable has the Middle East ever been? So I'm upset that oil prices can be higher. Higher prices, again, are like Nick said, are better show good for the economy, flowing more money through. But me personally, I'm not gonna be. I like gas a lot more now at like $2 than it was when it was $4 a few years ago.
Almost $5.
I like being able to buy Moe's when I want to. Not always like, oh, I can't go to Moe's because I have to buy gas.
But another aspect of this, I feel like it just also proves how dependent we are on Saudi Arabia itself, because the fact that one country is going to freeze oil output so all of our gas prices go up, that kind of says something about how
which
intertwined.
is scary.
Yeah, it is scary that
because
Saudi
how
Arabia has
dependable is
such control.
Saudi Arabia in like the whole scheme of the world.
I mean, they're the country who housed the terrorists that knocked the Twin Towers down.
Yeah,
but
I
we're
mean,
dependent on them for all of our oil reserves.
Yeah, the entire Middle East is just always in turmoil, so it is scary to depend on them for such a huge like staple in our economy. It's like, oh well, if anything goes wrong, we could be doomed.
We do have some gas out in the Midwest too, some oil, but
Well,
that's not going to be obviously not nearly enough to help. the
But
entire
Canada,
country.
we could do a partnership with Canada. They've got loads of oil.
There's more oil than the U.S. government is putting on that we have between Texas, between the Midwest, between Alaska.
Oh, and it all comes down. It all comes down to trying to control the economy and try to bring the oil prices up. And from the corporation side, you completely understand where they're coming from. It's same thing we've been talking about with the last question. Corporations want to make more money. So you can't really blame them for it.
It just sucks for the consumer.
It sucks for the consumer, but
you know what the mindset is? Our oil goes up if we deplete the rest of the world, because now, who has all the oil? I mean, supply and demand right there.
Exactly. I just feel like we wouldn't have such an emergency-like situation with this if we did, if not complete domestic drilling, partnerships with more trustworthy countries. Because like I said, Canada has plenty of oil. We don't need to go to Saudi Arabia with their shady past and things like that.
And I would like more domestic drilling too, but I would not like it in Alaska, and I don't like hydrofracking and any of that
Not
stuff.
fracking.
So that is horrible. So tap into our like natural reserves, but also at the same time, it's like, well, let's not deplete all of them too, because it's good to have them.
But
just
that's
in
where we
case.
can have where we do partnerships with our actual allies, rather than a country that says they're our ally, but then turns around and does things behind our backs, and then somehow manages to rise all our oil prices. We're just way too dependent on countries like
I'll
Saudi
tell you what,
Arabia.
Canada will never do that. All right, guys. We are out of time for this edition, the last of the semester for Commotion. I now have the unenviable task of picking the winner. I hate this part because I hate breaking dreams. And I know sometimes Nick cries a little bit off camera.
Sniff,
but
sniff.
Okay, well, here we go, guys. Drum roll, please. It was close, but I'm going to teach you boys a lesson here. That in an argument, a woman always wins. Caitlin,
Like
you
the all-time
are the
champion.
winner.
Thank you.
But before we go, remember, you can check us and other Cardinal Television programs out on Time Warner Cable Channel 12. Thank you all for joining us today. And Caitlin, take us home.
Thank you, Rob. It was awesome to see you again. It was great doing this again. It brought back good memories from last semester. I would just like to say, even though I'm going to see you again, I won't be on television with you again,
Yes.
so good luck in your future, Nick.
Thank you.
And I can't wait to see where the rest of my college career takes me, because I'll be a senior next year.
You'll do great as the president.
Thank you.
Yay!
Kevin always has the worst 30 seconds. Always the wrong decision. Pick the wrong person.
Okay, so all right. I'll
Still
catch you
some
down the
debate.
road. St. John Fisher.
Still salty.
It was glad to be back. I'll see you in the future.
Ooh.